欢迎来到 Coconut Chinese. Hi everyone, welcome to Coconut Chinese. Today our culture topic is K to 16 education in China versus in the United States. And I'm currently a part-time Mandarin Chinese teacher at a charter school, and I teach K to 8. Before we start this topic, I would like to introduce our guest speakers for today. So, Nick, would you like to introduce yourself first?
你好，我是 Nick Fegley，我在郑州是一种国际部教数学，我也是教务长。我的中文不好，所以我今天会说英语。I want to say that I am a math teacher and academic dean at Zhengzhou Shiyizhong, which is a international private school, a subset of a larger public school here in Zhengzhou.
Okay, then let's move on to Aaron. Would you like to introduce yourself?
我来美国之前是在中国教英语，我是一名英语老师之前，然后现在呢，我是在美国北卡罗来州教高中的中文，谢谢。
So now let's move on to Henry.
大家好，我叫 Henry， 我也有中文名字叫苏涵瑞，好，然后我只有2年的教学经历，我在中国的2所大学教过英语。I'm Henry. I also have a Chinese name. It's Su Hanrui, and I have only 2 years of teaching experience. I taught at 2 different universities in China.
Thank you for your introduction. So the first is we are going to compare the schedule in a school in China versus in the United States. So when I was a middle school student in China, our school starts at 8 and then finishes around 11:20, and we have about 3 hours lunch recess break. So we went home and then we had lunch and we had a nap. And then we went back to school. And the afternoon school starts around, it can be 2:30 p.m. or 3 p.m. And then finishes around 5 p.m. And it depends on schools. Usually most schools in China, most middle schools, they will have like an evening study session. For the current, because now I teach in a charter school, is K to 8, so I also teach middle school students. The school starts at 7:55 and finishes around 4 p.m. And the lunch recess break is only about 40 to 50 minutes. So Nick. Would you like to talk about like the schedules, like when you were a high school student in the United States, and the schedule and the high school that you're teaching now?
Yeah, well, when I was a high school student in the U.S., the schedule was whatever I felt like because I was a pretty bad student. So I just come and go as I pleased. When I was a high school teacher in the U.S., the schedule was about 7:45 a.m. to 3:30, I want to say, 2:30, 3:30, I can't remember. And we would have like 40-minute blocks some days and then 90-minute periods on other days. So that can be really rough on a student having to sit through 90 minutes of math class. Lunch is similar to what you described at your school. I think it was 45 minutes. High schools don't really have recess. They don't go like out and run and play. But we did have a 20-minute, what we called an activity period, which was a time in the middle of the day that students could go and talk to their teachers if they were missing homework, if they had questions, whatever. My students always played board games. In Zhengzhou Shiyizhong, we have what I would consider a pretty crazy schedule. We kind of almost follow the public school. Again, we're a subset of the public school. So we sort of make our own schedule, but we also follow a lot of the public school schedule. And the students start at 7:30, I want to say 7:30 a.m., doing morning reading. And they go until 10 p.m. at night. All of my students, with only a couple of exceptions, live here on campus 6 nights a week. They go home Saturdays. They do get a 2.5-hour lunch, which includes 1 hour of shoshi, of nap time, which is my favorite part of the Chinese schedule. It is definitely something I think American culture should adopt. That 1 hour nap is really, really good for your health. And it also includes a 30-minute, 10 to 10:30. I think it's like a running, like an activity period.
Yeah, morning exercise.
Yeah, they do E-R-E. They do the running. Every now and then I go running with them when I have the time, which is not often, except on Mondays when they do flag raising. No running on Mondays. And that's the schedule.
Now let's move on to Henry.
I think it's interesting. The question of scheduling, I think, has been addressed thousands of times and has thousands of different answers. I have an especially unique one at a school where I attended. Instead of Monday through Friday, they had A day through F day.
Oh, it's terrible.
So you never knew which letter day it was. And there were 9 periods of 40 minutes with 5-minute passing periods. So yeah, lots of unique solutions. That was my school back then.
Aaron, what about yours?
Because we had morning reading and we had to start at like 7:30 in the morning, and we had to do like morning reading and for like half an hour a day, and what else? And for the morning exercise in my school, in summer and in winter is actually different. In winter we do some running, jogging, but in summer we do kung fu or some, how do you say, the workouts. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my students do that too.
Yeah.
Aaron, you're talking
teachers will
about
teach you how to do that. Yes.
Aaron, you're talking about the high school schedule in China, right?
Yeah.
So what about the high school schedule in the United States?
The high school schedule in United States here, so the students, they didn't get like morning exercise, and also for each class it lasts longer. So my kids, they are doing some block schedules. Each class lasts like 90 minutes. It's way longer than my high school, because my sister, right now she's in high school and she only has like 40 minutes for each class, and for the transition time here in the US, my kids only got like 6 minutes for transition time, but my sister, they have 10 minutes. Yeah.
I have a question for the teachers. Which length of class do you prefer for teaching purposes? What do you feel most effective? 90 minutes, 40 minutes?
I would say it's because I was adjusting my teaching methodologies. When I teach the block schedule, I still teach like 40 minutes or 50 minutes, and I give them assignments to do,
Yeah.
But when I was teaching in China, most of the time I was teaching and I had to give my kids assignments when they got home to finish. Yeah.
Yeah, the block schedule really depends a lot on what you're teaching and how you teach. I taught 1 semester of physics, which I was not very good at, but there the block schedule was essential because we had to do labs. And if you want to try to cram a lab into 40 minutes, it's going to be a disaster. Yeah. Or you like pause your lab and come back the next day, and in the meantime, everybody like pushes your lab over and it's broken now. It can't be done. So in that situation, the 90-minute period was really, really nice. But when I teach math, which is what I prefer to teach, it can be rough. You can't do 90-minute lecture on math, and most students don't have the stamina for that.
I sat through a lot of 90-minute math lectures in college.
I personally don't mind it, but you said before we started, you said you're also a math major. So I assume you have the stamina, but most students don't.
Understandable.
And when I taught a couple semesters, I taught a programming class, and that really, the 90 minutes was great because I could do 20 minutes of lecture and then give them a ton of time to just do hands-on programming, which is the best way to learn. And I really feel like if I had only 40 minutes to teach programming, that wouldn't have been great because there's so much like getting in the right mindset that by the time you're ready to start, class would be over. So
Yeah.
it depends so much, and I can only speak about technical. I can't really speak about the humanities. I don't know what to say about how English teachers or social studies teachers feel about it. But it really depends on what you're teaching and how you're teaching.
I do agree with that, but for the class length, I think it also depends on like the grade level. Because for my school, each class is about 50 minutes long. I think it's too much for K-4 or K-4 students. And in between class, the transition time is only 3 minutes long. That's not enough. And when I go into the classroom, I can already tell like the students, they kind of like burn out, they don't have much energy, So, okay, then what activities or programs that your school provide, Erin?
They have a lot of games. We call it like the students, they do a lot of different games like football and basketball and softball. Yeah, a lot of games. And even for the teachers, we have to do a lot of game duties. Yeah, each teacher in my school, we have to do 6 duties each semester. Yeah, that's after school duties. So we have to stay at school and to sell the tickets and to one thing, that kind of thing. But the school in China, when I was in China, we didn't really have that many like sports activities. So normally, I think just once each semester we have a thing we call it 运动会 sports meeting, just once every semester, and that's it. We don't really have that many games because the students, they are really busy with academic stuff. They don't really have time to do some sports. Yeah, it's different.
Erin, what about non-sport related extracurricular activities like AV club or student council or chess club?
In my school here in the U.S., the students, they have some club. I heard about that, but because Chinese program in my school, we don't really have that club thing, so I don't really know it a lot. Yeah, but I heard about club thing before. Yeah.
My school, not just for example, the school that I teach is in Arizona, we do offer like after school clubs, and usually it's the teachers, they host it and students, they join. When I was in China, like the high school that I went to, we had a lot of clubs, and then usually it's the students who were running the clubs. Yeah, no teachers. So maybe my high school was different than yours, Erin. Yeah. Nick, what about your school?
Well, our program, we are partnered with an American school in St. Mary's in Medford, Oregon. All of my students graduate with 2 diplomas, one from Shizhong, one from St. Mary's. And because of that, we make an effort to kind of marry the 2 systems. We're a cross between the Chinese system and the American system. My students take all of their classes bilingually. So I'm their American math teacher, but they also have a Chinese math teacher. And so I really like this because it gives us the opportunity to do American style clubs. For example, this semester, well, right now everybody's at home under quarantine, but last semester I taught a electronics and soldering club. So the kids learned how to make PCBs and what different components did, capacitors, resistors, et cetera, et cetera. And it was, very basic stuff. It wasn't too fancy, but by the end of it, they had like a thing that would like flash and make noise and would be very disruptive in class. And that was about an hour a week, every Wednesday. And then some examples of other clubs that the other teachers were doing. There was a board game club, which is a good opportunity for students to like practice speaking English in a more informal setting. There was a read out loud club, a debate club. Debate was very popular. And that's very similar to how we did it in America. The Chinese schedule is so much more restricted, with my students like only getting the little bits of time during the day of freedom, whereas American schedule at like 3:30, the day is over. And if you want to join the baseball team or the debate club or just go home and play video games or have an after school job like I did, you can do any one of those things.
So for the after school programs, actually in China, like there's a lot of outside school after school programs. There are a lot of kids that can, they can sign up, like the chess clubs or even academic programs like for the math, English, Chinese, or even for
my students don't have too much opportunity because they live here on campus. Some of them take off-campus TOEFL classes. All of my students are planning on going to university abroad. That's why they're in our program. So some of them take off-campus TOEFL classes, but I don't know that any of them are taking art class or dance class, for example. We did have a Gaosan student last year, and she took off-campus art classes, but she's the only exception that I know of.
I'm told that you can actually get points added to your Gaokao if you do certain like music or art extracurriculars to a certain level.
My kids don't take Gaokao.
I feel like your kids are different from like the kids in public schools. Yeah.
Yes.
They probably go abroad to study, right?
Yeah. So we, like I said, we're a subset of the public school. The public school has, I want to say 4,000 students. Our program has about 130. And we're on the same campus. So I talk as often as I can with the public school kids, because frankly, they're more polite than my students. And,
what is your class size?
my average class size is 20. The public school is much bigger. I'm not sure. I don't deal with them on that granular level, but we're 20-ish per class.
Okay, so now let's move on to classroom management. So Nick, you mentioned you have about 20 students in your classroom.
The difference between managing Americans and Chinese students, the difference is the parents. I think last year I thought, wow, Chinese students are so well behaved. I've had enough time here that I've finally figured out teenagers in every culture are teenagers, right? They're doing the same stupid things. The difference is when an American student gets in trouble, the parent, not always, but more often than not, will go to war with the school. How dare you accuse my student? My student's perfect. And then like there's this whole back and forth battle, and it makes it very, very difficult to discipline a student. In a Chinese school, as dean, a lot of times I'm involved in these disciplinary procedures. The parents always come in. I always get very nervous because my background is as an American teacher. I always get nervous, like, oh, this parent's going to get angry at me, and it's going to be an argument. And it's never what happens. The Chinese parent always comes in, always very kind, apologizes, yells at their kid, and gets things back on track. It's fascinating. The thing that's most fascinating to me is, please feel free to correct my pronunciation, but when you're bad, you get a bugao. Is that correct? Bugao.
Bugao. What is bugao?
Oh dear. It's like you did a bad thing paper. It's a paper that says you're bad.
布告. You mean 布告? And you put your name on the 布告栏.
Yeah. And everybody here takes that so seriously. Whereas if I said to an American student, "That's it, you're in trouble. I'm going to write your name on a piece of paper," they would laugh at me, maybe flip me the bird, and leave. Like that's not a real consequence in America. In China, that's a huge consequence. So I mean, that's the biggest difference is in both places. Like in my school, I've had kids smoking cigarettes, drinking baijiu, getting in fist fights. All of that's normal, right? I had that in America. I have that in China. Same thing. Every school, teenagers are teenagers. But the difference is the follow through, the consequences. It's a lot easier to punish a Chinese kid because their parents take it seriously, and because that bugao for whatever reason is very serious.
Okay.
Yeah, I do agree
Yeah.
with that because I do also see there's maybe like cultural difference there. Like it's much easier to deal with parents in China. And yeah, Erin, would you like to share about your experience?
And for the disciplinary action here in the US, I feel like it's more specific and it's actually easier for me like to know what to do. Like the school will let me know the first time if the student they are disrespectful to you, you just give them a warning, and for the second time you call their parents. The third time you give them a detention. The fourth time you do a referral. It's very specific and it's very easy for me, especially when I first started as a new teacher to follow all this. And my school really takes this seriously, and all the management they do this and they talk to the kids, and yeah, it's very effective.
What
Yeah,
kind of school are you at? Is public or private?
public. It's a public school.
Interesting.
Henry, what about yours?
I don't have as much experience. I do know that American schools vary wildly. My mom taught high school for 30 years, and she had schools where, you know, people were trying to kill each other literally, and other situations where, you know, it was very organized and yeah, had an effective system like Aaron was talking about. So that's from my mom's experience. In China, the only problem I really had was just trying to get my students engaged. Sometimes people were pretty checked out, but I think that also is not, that's been partially reflecting on me being a born teacher as well, so.
It's also, don't be so hard on yourself. It's also universal, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, remember being a student, the last thing you wanted to do is go to class, especially when you have options like video games or sports or, yeah.
So, like Erin, how many students that you have to teach in your current high school, and how many students that you had while you taught in China?
So here, my biggest class got 30 kids.
Whoa.
And my smallest class has 19, 20. Yeah, that's my smallest class. Yeah,
Those are really big classes for second language though.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. In China, my high school only got like 40, 50 kids or over about 60.
So when I heard like, oh, 30 kids, that's a pretty big class size, I was laughing. How come like 30 students class size is big? Because in China, usually the common class size will be like between 50 to 60.
Yeah,
or
but it's
even the
30
smallest.
American kids. 30 American kids is a lot more work than 60 Chinese kids.
That's true.
And then I realized that's true. Like 30 students. Oh wow, that's a big class size. It's hard to handle. It's hard to do.
It is.
Manage the class. Next topic we're going to talk about is just compare the education system in China versus in the United States from your personal teaching experience. Like, what are the pros and what are the cons? Henry, would you like to start first?
My experience is in the college level. So I can't necessarily speak a lot about the high school level. And broad generalizations, I don't have any great ones right now. I know that there's so many different situations in both countries. So
Nick.
Maybe some teachers with high school experience can chime in.
Nick, you have a lot to say?
I always have a lot to say. I don't want to dominate the conversation, but yeah.
Please.
Again, I want to point out that my school is not the norm, right? Because we're a private school and we're an international school. So I don't want to speak for all Chinese programs. So I feel like the American education system is really, really good at getting students to think creatively and express themselves. And the Chinese education system is really, really good at getting students to and I don't want this to sound negative. I don't mean it in a bad way, but it's good at getting students to do rote work and memorize things, which is really good. Like my students learn like hundreds and hundreds of vocabulary words in English every week, far more than I think an American student could learn. And if I give my students some math to do, they learn it like that. They are incredible at math. It's a stereotype to say that Chinese people are good at math, but my students really, really are. Even the ones, I mean, there's going to be diversity in every class. I have good math students and bad math students, but the bad math students I have in my Chinese classes are still 1,000 times ahead of my mediocre American students. The good in either culture is the same. The best Chinese math student and the best American math students I've had are equal. But the lower for the Chinese is so much higher than the lower for the American. And I think the frustrating thing for me teaching Chinese classes is the lack of, I don't want to say ability, but emphasis on self-expression. So if I say, here's how you find the antiderivative, my students can do that. If I say, okay, I want you to try to figure this out, but I'm not going to give you any direction, my students will just stare blankly at the page and do nothing. Whereas in America, my students were much better at exploring ideas, trying things out, taking chances, making mistakes. But then if you said, okay, I want you to memorize this formula, there would be mass chaos. It couldn't happen.
Erin, what about your own experience?
My own experience about teaching here and in China. So I liked both, I would say. When I was in China, I was teaching an elementary school, so it's also a bit different. But I liked that the kids in China, they always they listen to you, and you don't really worry about the classroom behavior thing. And also I liked that the parents, they always get involved in, and they always keep in touch with the teachers, and you don't really need to contact them because they would reach you out. And here in the US, when I teach, I like that the students, they make me feel like I'm also learning at the same time with them, because English is not my first language, and the kids sometimes they would correct my English grammar thing, so I'm also learning. But in China, when I was in China, I just feel like, okay, I'm the king in the world, like that kind. So the students, they would just listen to you. You're the center of the class. But here, so the kids, they are also teaching me. Yeah, I like that.
From my own experience, I would say Chinese kids, most of them, they are really good at following directions. So because they are very good at following directions and listening to what they have to do, maybe they can be a good model citizen. But for American kids, yes, they're very creative. When I give them projects to do, they can always surprise me with the work they have done.
Nothing breaks my heart more than asking my Chinese students to make a poster and just seeing these awful, poorly constructed, scribbled, teacher, I'm done, right? It's all about getting that assignment done. I'm done, teacher. It took me 30 seconds. I'm finished. And I know they have potential that they're just not executing on. That really does break my heart, to give them an opportunity to express themselves and for them to turn it down. No, teacher, it's not about self-expression. It's about my GPA.
In the United States, it's the teachers that have their own homeroom. But in China, it's the students, they have their own classroom, and teachers travel to all the classroom. So in China, I think most schools, they will have they will have a board in their classroom, and once a month, they will have a theme they will give to the whole school, and then every class they have to be creative, what they're going to create, what they're going to do with that board. Instead of the teachers, they have to be in charge of homeroom decorations, and in China, students, they have to do all those work. And then you will see their creativity, and then they'll find they're expressing themselves, because they want to be the best class of the school. And then you will see their creativity in that part. Also, in China, when it's New Year, like they will have like a school-wide celebration. It's kind of like gala show. Did I say it right?
Yep. The gala show. Yeah. Yeah. We take our New Year's party very seriously here at Sri Zhongguo Jibo.
Yeah. Like,
And there's the Mid-Autumn Festival one too.
什么
就是新年晚会啊，或者说中秋节晚会。Yeah, the gala show or the sports meetings, like it involved with the class pride thing, and then they'll take it very serious and they'll put their more than 100% there. Yeah. For my school, I wish my school can have more school-wide event for the kids too.
And so that was when we were in high school, but nowadays in China, I think the Department of Education, they're also trying to change the way how the teachers teach. So right now they're kind of doing the similar thing as U.S. So the teacher, they stay in the same classroom and the students, they move. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, that's not how my school does it. I wish we did though. It would be so, I wish we did that. My school, I have an office, the students stay put. I hate it. It's not a good system. It's the thing that I think is worse about the Chinese system. I would love for us to adopt the American way of me having my own room.
Yeah.
And the students moving around.
Okay, so that's all for our culture talk. Nick, would like to do the ending?
Everybody, please share, like, and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. If you have thoughts about your education, be it America or China, let us hear it. We'd love to hear it. We especially love to hear about if you go to a different school, maybe not in America or China. How does your system compare and contrast? Share, like, and subscribe.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.